Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and earlier today I talked about my objections to the change in the coronavirus message from the government. But if that wasn't dumb enough, a number of other things revealed in his pre-recorded message and then followed up with tweets later to the nation are actually offensive to the intellect of anyone with any sort of analytical brain. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news in politics, then please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So, as someone with a mathematical background, I have to tackle this new 5-stage warning system first. Now, the concept is fine. The concept actually makes sense. The idea of having warning levels is certainly backed by the scientists. In fact, the alternative sage group just last week were talking about this and said, and you can have it on a particular day. You say we're at this level and these are the precautions you need to take. Absolutely, perfectly fine. Except Boris Johnson has revealed how this works, and it makes my head hurt. So this is the formula that he is claiming. Note that it's an official government graphic. It's out there. It is out there. So if you use this formula, what would that make our COVID level at the moment? Well, if we assume the midpoint of the currently known range of R being 0.7, because it's between 0.5 and 0.9, we don't know where it is, and the government's own figures on the number of infections, which at the moment stands at 219,183, which of course is way lower than the real figure. Even ministers don't deny that. Then that gives you a COVID alert level of 219,183.7. The level is supposed to go from level 1 to level 5. And Boris Johnson last night said that we were at level 4 until recently, and we've just moved into level 3. 1 representing no infection in the country at all, and 5 being hold on to your hats, Martha, this is going to get a bit sticky. And the thing is, it's not even a typo. This isn't even something they've produced quickly and they've just put the wrong operator in. There is no operator that could possibly make this formula work. Absolutely zero way of making those two values work together to give you what it claims to do, provide an alert level between 1 and 5, which means it's a deliberate lie, stamped with the government and NHS logos, designed to fool the innumerate portion of the population and think that the level is based on a scientific assessment, that you just plug the numbers in, it's totally impartial, you plug the numbers in and this is the level you get out, and it's not at all got any political interference in deciding what this level is randomly. But that is not the case. It's absolutely not the case. And apart from anything else, Johnson said that we were at level 4 during the lockdown and have just moved to level 3. Oh yes. On what basis? Because at Prime Minister's questions, he said that he needed to see the next few days worth of data. That's why he didn't announce this in Parliament. And actually, his performance last night, it wasn't his performance last night because it was a pre-recorded message, which can only, it should have been done live and he should have taken questions from journalists at least. In fact, actually, it should have been done in Parliament and taken questions there. And his delivery just showed why, because it made no sense. It needed to be debated in Parliament so that before it officially went out to the public, all of the obvious questions to it could have been answered and it wouldn't have been so confusing. Because, he said it's based on the next few days of data. Nothing over the few days between Prime Minister's questions and this weekend when he recorded it on the Saturday has changed. We don't even know what the R value is. He said himself that it's between 0.5 and 0.9. That agrees with everything. Independent scientists as well as the government all agree that it's between 0.5 and 0.9. But that is a hell of a margin for error. And if it was nearer the 0.9, we really don't want to be easing the lockdown at all, not even by the tiniest amount. And it isn't by the tiniest amount that it has been eased. But it didn't end there. That wasn't the end of it. He also showed a graphic indicating that an R value of 1 is at the border between level 3 and level 4. So are we now saying that each level is 0.33 of R? Is it linear, this scale? In which case, we're still in level 4. If we use the midpoint of the known R range, between 0.5 and 0.9, the midpoint would be 0.7. That'd be level 4. How has it got to the below 0.67 in order to be able to claim level 3. And is he also saying with this that R can't possibly go above 1.67? Because I can assure him that it can. You know, for those who aren't sure about it, what R represents fundamentally is, let's say you're infected. On average, how many people are you likely to infect? So a value of between 0.5 and 0.9 means, let's say it's 0.5 because that's the lower end of it and that makes the maths easier. That means on average, every 2 infected people will infect 1 person themselves. So you can manage that. That's why it's really important to keep it below 1, because once it gets above 1, that is basically saying everyone that gets infected is going to infect on average more than another person. So because of the exponential growth of this thing, it just goes completely out of control. You have to keep this thing below 1. But if it's just below 1, that's not a comfortable position either, because it could easily tip above 1 with, say, easing a lockdown too quickly or too deeply, as it seems we are going to be doing. But the fact that 1 person can absolutely infect multiple people means, of course, you can have an R value that's ultimately fairly unlimited. So the graphic is also a deliberate lie, just like the formula, because no one with a decent mathematical background could possibly be comfortable with this. I imagine the sage scientists are squirming right now at being tied to this rubbish, because everyone will be saying that this is the sage scientists that have come up with this. Everyone understands Boris Johnson doesn't understand maths. He won't even understand the formula he's posting up. He's just distributing them as the Prime Minister. That's fine. No one will blame him for it. But that's just the mathematical shenanigans. Then there's his statements about going out and about. So people are now allowed unlimited outdoor exercise. They're allowed to sit in the park and can even drive to other destinations. So Nigel Farage can calm down because he's now permitted to drive to Dover and shout at the sea as much as he likes, or at least from Wednesday he is, at any rate. And as for playing sports, but only with members of your own household, I mean, how is that supposed to work? Because if it was on your own property, you know, because everyone has their own tennis court in the back garden, don't they, Boris? Well, then that was fine anyway. And if it's in a public space, how do you play sports in a public space without bumping into other people who want to use that space as well? Then there's the bit about telling people to get the lazy asses back to work. I mean, that's it now. That is the message. They want you economically active immediately. Except, of course, quite a lot of businesses still have to stay closed, because shops have to stay closed still, or most shops have to stay closed. Hospitality centres have to stay closed, bars, restaurants, you know, hotels, things like that. What about workers with children? There's no childcare and there's no school to send your kids to. Not a word about how to deal with this. And I can tell you from the education side of things, schools and colleges haven't had a word about how to deal with this either. This is totally out the blue for schools and colleges. So workers are being actively encouraged to return to work now. And make no mistake, actively encouraged means forced. And leave their small children unattended at home. I assume that's the intention. I mean, I suppose Boris Johnson would think that was all right. He's left, after all of his previous kids unattended. His somewhere between 7 to 9 kids that hasn't just spawned. I mean, he hasn't even given people enough notice of this to build a child prison at home to keep them locked in while the parents go to work. The whole thing is absolutely monstrous. He's claiming that the lockdown hasn't ended. It's not the time to end the lockdown. But he's telling people to go back to work without any safety systems in place. He says the government are working on systems. Well, you've just told people to go back to work this week. Saying you're working on systems isn't really helping, because you have to work on the systems, then you have to announce them to employers, then you have to give the employers time to put them in place. None of that's happened, and yet he's telling them to go back to work right now. And there's no provision for childcare, of course. And saying that people can now go for recreation from this Wednesday with no restrictions at all. I mean, if that isn't the end of a lockdown, I really don't know what is. So anyway, those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. I am sure they're going to be quite thorough. That is the situation as it is now. He's claiming that the lockdown hasn't ended, but in most realistic situations, he effectively has ended it. But there it is. If you found the video interesting, please click the like button. If you'd like to support the channel further, then please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.